and welcome everyone to episode 29 of One Piece at a Time, the One Piece read-through podcast where we read and discuss 5 chapters of the One Piece manga each and every week. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host and freelance letterer at Shonen Jump, Brandon Bovia. How you doing, Brandon?
Doing pretty good. Ready to, well, it's going to be one of those episodes.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one of those episodes. And
well, it fits so nicely into this 5-chapter format because it basically is like the beginning and the end of just like this one little flashback chunk.
It's amazing how well it bookends itself with its whole device. I'm like, oh man, we lucked into that one.
yeah, it's nice. I wonder how often we're gonna get that lucky.
I can't imagine too often, but maybe it'll stick around.
Yeah.
I don't know. The other crazy thing that I did want to mention because of the time we're recording this is that we're only a few days out from the news of Kazuki Takahashi's passing, and that's a big deal. It feels like even just beyond Yu-Gi-Oh itself, like across all manga, it's a huge thing. And I know
one of the most successful manga of all time, and hugely influential.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think about just how that all went down, and just so sad. It's just
it's heartbreaking. Yu-Gi-Oh is one of those. I don't think there's any other kind of like IP or franchise out there that is more important to me than Yu-Gi-Oh. Just straight up. One Piece might be I think I can comfortably say my favorite manga of all time, and I think Yu-Gi-Oh shares that spot depending on the day that you ask me. They are kind of neck and neck as far as just like my favorite things.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it is so important to you. You've told me multiple times just how into Yu-Gi-Oh you are, and I've only seen bits and pieces of the manga because of, well, the old Shonen Jump magazine. And it always did strike me as just how different it was compared to the anime, because I don't mainly watch the anime, basically up to the middle of the Battle City arc. And just still super enjoyed it, but never got into the card game because I had sworn off card games after Pokemon and how much money I spent on that.
That's fair.
Yep.
It's on the Shonen Jump app, the same app that we're reading. We would read One Piece off of. So like, I kind of want to, if like you're feeling like this is something that you missed out on and you're like, oh, it's just some kind of card game thing, or whatever, try reading the first few chapters. It's
more than just card games. It became the focus, but it's definitely more than just card games. It's all games, and somehow working in all of Kazuki's interests into one. Yeah. And the other reason I wanted to bring it up is it's not a goal or anything up on the Patreon or like that, but it is a thought I've had, just because you are such a fan of it and I've never read it, that if we ever became successful enough that most majorly I'd be able to hire a editor, so I don't have to edit these podcasts myself, but I want to be able to pay said person to maybe work in a second podcast. And I thought that second one would probably be Yu-Gi-Oh focused, because you are so passionate, and I am highly unaware of it outside of, well, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series is how I've consumed most of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Storyline.
I think particularly for those first 7 volumes that are, it's the part of the story that isn't as card game focused. Those early volumes are bonkers, and I think they would be really fun to make to podcast about. Yeah, I haven't read that section of the story in a hot minute, so I only remember bits and pieces. But it is a wild ride, and even both the anime and the anime's English dub, I think, kind of dilute just sort of like the zaniness just a bit. Compared to the original manga. So like, it's, I don't know. I think Yu-Gi-Oh is a masterpiece. I'm incredibly biased, but
I'd be so curious. I mean, I'm sure I'd have fun with it because it is so ridiculous and way shorter than One Piece. Like,
and it's got a lot of heart too. And I think as somebody who works as like a gaming content creator, I think Yu-Gi-Oh's like core themes are basically about like how you can use games as a form of communication and self-expression.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think that's highly relevant even today.
Yeah, we'll see if anything comes about that we can pull that off, but it's been in the back of my mind because how many how many chapters Yu-Gi-Oh is off the top of your head?
300 something.
Oh, okay. So it's still pretty lengthy. Okay.
In One Piece terms, it's about up to Water 7.
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of length.
Okay.
And that's including, like the all of it, the early stuff, and then the card game stuff, and then the ending. The English localization of the manga splits it into like 3 separate runs, because I think they were trying to get out all 3 at the same time. But yeah,
they knew the card game was definitely the most important one. So I remember them having the card game section was called Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist.
Yeah, it was like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist, and Millennium World. In the manga, it's sort of like a Dragon Ball Z kind of thing, branding wise. But yeah, in the original, it's just all one story, and it's like 37, 38 volumes.
Cool.
Somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, definitely more manageable. It's like a third the size of One Piece.
Yeah, it definitely sounds a lot easier, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I don't know. Keep your eyes out for that. Signal boost this podcast. So
yeah. If you want to see some Yu-Gi-Oh content, why not? Just get an inspiration. It's new stuff happens about surrounding manga, and I get interested in it. That's how this whole One Piece thing started, because I was like, man, I want to read One Piece again now that it hit its 1000th chapter, but finding the time. Yeah, that's the tricky part. So
you got to make content about it.
Yeah, I got to make content. That's the freelancer's life. Turn that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. Well, speaking of content, we should actually get started talking about One Piece. And
yes.
We have chapter 141, Quack Doctor. I guess we're in the dance arc for this set of chapters, because Django discovered in disguise at the dance concert, contest. He doesn't get called out. He's just discovered, or maybe he's discovered as in his dancing is so good that he's invited to the dance contest.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, this whole section of cover stories was completely wild. I feel like there wasn't much to glean from it, from the ones we got in this set of chapters, but it was all very entertaining.
Yeah, it's amusing as each one. I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, he's living his best life out here.
Yeah, he kind of is. It's just he's dancing all the time. Yeah. It's the way to go.
So, do the 70s exist in the One Piece world?
I guess so.
just the entire concept of the 70s.
Yeah, that it's just apparently Golden Week exists. This is just a hodgepodge of everything.
Exactly. Look, there's kanji everywhere. Nobody has Japanese names. It's wild out here.
Yeah, it's all over the place. But into the chapter proper, we've got Zoro finishing off all the soldiers, and that about went as well as we thought.
It's Whiskey Peak all over again.
Yeah.
There's one guy sticking out of a roof.
I know. I feel like they got it worse than the guys at Whiskey Peak, because that guy sticking out of the roof, another guy bent over a tree in the backyard, and Zoro just tosses aside the swords that he stole from these guys.
It's great. It's so good.
And just the shocked faces of everybody while Usopp calls out, "Just what I ordered."
Just what I ordered. Yeah.
Well done, my minion.
Yes. Also, I mean, they're all thankfully, now that the riffraff is done with, we're able to kind of try and dig out Dalton out of the snow.
Yeah, it's funny to see them all panic and do that. It's like, hey, what was all the commotion about?
Right, yeah.
That doesn't really matter to him. He's just like,
yeah, Zoro was like, oh yeah.
Right, sure, I don't know this guy, but whatever. But then we go back to the castle, where Chopper is rushing back to Dr. Kureha to inform her that Wapol is back. Meanwhile, Luffy and Sanji are running after him. Again, it's just,
I do like that they point that out, that he can transform, basically.
Mm-hmm. He's a normal reindeer. Awesome. Just everything about Chopper is so cool to Luffy. Mm-hmm. But just before we see Wapol arriving at the castle, they have found Dalton's body, thanks to the arrow sticking out of his chest. That's dark.
I didn't realize. Yeah.
We found his wound.
Yeah, it kind of... It was kind of confusing, because they kind of jump back and forth between scenes here, where you have Dalton at the castle, and then there's we found we found Dalton. Yeah, there's sort of two things happening simultaneously.
It does feel like a big momentous occasion, because you got these three, Wapol and his two henchmen, and he's just been terrible this entire time. Immediately, of course, he sees a pirate flag raised above everything else, which of course we're going to get into all of that.
Kureha, like a boss, is like, or he's like, what happened to the flag? And Korea's like, I burnt it.
Yep. Getting rid of all of that.
What a boss.
Apparently we going even further with Wapol, Kureha was the last survivor of the Great Doctor Hunt. It wasn't that they just expelled them. They just hunted them down.
Hunted them, apparently.
What the hell?
Yeah, and as we'll get into later, I think it's so interesting that like we see it now where Kureha says like, "I've turned your castle into a mausoleum for Hiruluk." Was like, as we'll sort of get into later, like seeing how that relationship kind of changed over the course of the next few chapters. I thought it was kind of like, oh, in hindsight, there was a change.
Yes.
Yeah, like that's not always how she thought about him.
No. I think seeing the course of these flashbacks is definitely what brought her around on things. There was always a bit of a friendship, like rival friendship.
Yeah. It was a very rocky friendship.
Yeah. Before we get to all of that, man, we are just flopping back and forth. Dalton's apparently dead.
Yeah, rip.
Yeah, it's like, hey, he's dead, and then we're back.
Yeah, okay. It's just like one. It's weird because it's like you have that top panel where it is Kureha, saying like that, get out of here basically, and then it cuts back in the middle of the page to Dalton. Oh, he's dead, and then cuts back at the bottom of the page to Dalton and Chopper kind of, or to Wapol and Chopper kind of staring at each other.
It works kind of in flow, but to talk about it is very odd to go back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to sort of. Yeah, it made sense to me while I was reading it, but it's like, oh, which part do you adjust first? But this next bit got a real laugh out of me.
Oh, I died.
It's one of the best flashback transitions I've ever seen, because like Wapol's here at the castle, and then Luffy is just like, he's like, it's on site,
Yeah.
He's like, oh, it's him, and he goes in for the gum bull.
And now
the freeze frame.
Yeah, that is such you could open a story with that panel and be like, so you might wonder how I got to this point.
Yeah, it's exactly what I thought of was Wapol being like, you might be wondering how I found myself in this situation. It's just jaw dropped.
I also love this super tiny detail that Wapol's hippo cloak, the eyes are bugging out on that as well.
I didn't even see that. That's so good.
And I love the setup for Luffy coming into this too. He's just chasing after Chopper.
And he's just like, oh, hey.
Oh, hey, he's here. I'm going to punch him.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like without a second thought, like, oh.
So good.
I laughed so hard at that.
Like, I can also say it's like, no, don't cut away from the fight, but then you get into the actual flashback, and this takes place 6 years earlier. A Tale of the Drum Kingdom, where apparently this Hiruluk that we're following set a house on fire. He stole the money,
interesting way,
then started the fire.
Yeah, he's and did he rob them? Because on the next page he's like, 40,000, 45,000 berries, and he's just like, is that? He's like flipping through the cash. So like.
Yeah.
Did he?
He's like coughing up blood, which at first I thought he was like shot or something, but we do find out later, since it is in the set, that he's, sick. Yeah. Even this far back. Nice little setup for that.
Yeah.
But we'll get to the next section as well, where he burst into a house. Where
I love all of these Santa references. Like they're sort of just like sprinkled here and there, like in the places you wouldn't expect. Hiruluk is like he's coming down through the chimney, or like how Chopper has a blue nose instead of a red nose.
Mm-hmm. Just a lot of fun bits with the mythos.
Yeah, it's really playing with your expectations. It's like, he's coming down the chimney like Santa, but he to treat like this kid from this random family, and like the woman. The mom is just like, I'm gonna go call the police, and then Hiruluk shoots her.
Yeah, it's actually the husband. Like the husband is sick. Yeah, and he's trying to treat the husband, and he's like, they're trying to resist the entire time, and you said, he shoots him with a knockout shot. This kid is crying over the body.
Yeah,
and he tries to administer like his stuff, and this guy, meanwhile, the guy's literally saying, I have a family, and he ends up just frothing at the mouth.
Foaming at the mouth, yeah. That's horrifying.
Yeah, and she's like, should I administer it intravenously? Could the formula be wrong? I was sure the frog extract would work. What have I done? I was like, and then the kid's just crying, and then he jumps out the window.
Yep.
Like,
so that didn't go well.
No, it's kind of ridiculous. So I will say that I've been made aware that Totally Not Mark had started doing look backs, and I watched the first couple since we had been watching, just to see what his opinions were from the stuff we've already covered. But then I had a thought of, hey, I've read this before, and I don't think it'll spoil too much based on how he's going. And then I get into this section where where he had some major issues with Hero Luke and this introduction because he hated Hero Luke from this introduction and just how
one thing I didn't have time, but I had heard that the anime sort of kind of like saws off the edges a little bit.
Yes.
Of his character, they make it a little less exaggerated. His sort of kind of like criminal antics.
Yes, basically what they do is they get rid of they have him still on the run, but they start with the bridge scene.
Oh,
I think they completely cut out him terrorizing this family because they call him a quack, but he's a criminal. He burned a place down, robbed somebody. Forcefully did medicine that could have killed this family, and he's our good guy that we're supposed to look up to at this point. It's a rough, weird introduction.
So my interpretation to this, because I had that thought in my mind while I was reading this section. It was like, because I don't remember this flashback that well at all. Like I don't really remember Hero Luke as a character. So I had been keeping in mind that like, okay, maybe the manga overdoes it to the point where the anime has to kind of tone it down a bit. And, some folks seem to not like his portrayal in the manga. But my personal takeaway is that it's like he's an extremely flawed, human being. Even without the scene, he is a criminal. He is somebody who is doing bad or otherwise morally questionable things. But I think the point that Oda was trying to get across was that like somebody like that can still be capable of like taking care of somebody, putting somebody under his wing, And I think that the sort of the bits as we see later on in this chunk where he sort of brings Chopper in, but then kind of has to like tries to do these awful things to get Chopper to go away because he doesn't want him to worry about him. And so I think those parts wouldn't hit as hard if you didn't have the context that he was kind of a crappy guy.
Yeah, and they do mention his history later on, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
And we immediately get this, with this bridge scene, the relationship between him and Kureha, where she just considers him incompetent. And apparently hundreds of people wouldn't have suffered from a simple cold had he not called himself a doctor. I guess we can assume from here he only just arrived and just tried to start helping people that were down for a cold because of the doctor purge, and there was only those 20 doctors as we see, because it's only the 20 doctors, Kureha and Hero Luke. So it's not great, but she finds him incompetent and he finds her greedy, which is funny because he robbed somebody, but okay.
Yeah.
And now everybody in the island despises him, and they're kind of okay with the security force trying to hunt him down. But
she's just like, all right, see ya.
Yeah. But then here comes his sort of redemption where he's incompetent and kind of just all over the place.
He is literally a criminal.
Yeah. But he does find the injured Chopper shot in his human form. And we get the flashback of the people trying to shoot at him, and Hero Luke's just talking to him, and you see the flashbacks of him getting shot, and he's talking about how he has medicine that can heal anything, even broken bones, and he calls him my good monster, and at that he just gets socked by Chopper.
Well, I guess it was that, but I think he also noticed the gun coming out of the suitcase.
Oh, I missed that. I was so focused on the my good monster and not the gun.
I think you could make an argument that it's both, but like seeing in the flashback with like Chopper is being shot at with guns, and so the fact that like there's even a little sound effect for the gun, the little poink coming out of the gun coming out of the suitcase. Yeah, I interpreted that as Chopper being like afraid of guns.
I can totally see that. I missed that. I absolutely missed that. It's a good eye there. I was so focused on Monster and just how him getting slammed by Chopper.
Yeah, no, it's brutal. Just seeing him kind of lying there bloodied in the snow.
And then he gets up, is like, how dare he? What does he think I am? And then he calls out to Chopper, and strips off all his clothes and says, "I never shoot you." So you're right about the gun part.
Like his crotch just like covered up by a little snowflake or a big snowflake.
He's obviously freezing. We're seeing a lot more of Hero Luke than I think we wanted to see.
Yeah, maybe just a bit. That is an interesting way to get somebody on your side.
Yep, but it works, and they go into this little mountain cave in the side of one of the drum mountains, and Chopper's all fixed up, bandaged up all over, and he has a piece of bread nearby, and he's just crying as he eats the bread. It's just so sweet.
I read this batch of chapters while I was eating lunch at Chipotle the other day, so I was tearing up just in public at that last panel. Just
it's just that kindness, and
he's never had kindness from a human like that, or really anybody.
No, nobody.
Woof.
So, and it's amazing how quickly that end of that chapter comes from that. Yeah. As for the SBS, we get a little mention of Karoo, who's a super spot bill, who is huge. It doesn't have web feet. It's a land type. And when it feeds, it shows its teeth. Karoo is amazing.
That's horrifying.
Yep. And otherwise, apparently the black snailophone looks like poo when its shell is closed.
Okie dokie.
All right. Sure. That's Oda. Well, let's move on to chapter 142, Skull and Cherry Blossoms, where, we have Django as the unexpected appearance in the dance contest. Everybody partying down.
There's so much energy in this one, and really all of these. It's just fun.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. Not a lot to comment on. It's just fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, we continue on with the flashback, and here Luke finally discovers that, hey, he can talk, and apparently Chopper didn't say anything for the last 3 days.
Wow.
But Chopper was that concerned. It's like, if I spoke, I thought you wouldn't like me.
I feel like that says like everything you need to know about the sort of life he's had to live up to now.
Yeah, just every little thing about him being considered a freak.
Yeah.
Just every aspect about him. And to have Hero Luke immediately say, "So what if you can talk?" That's nothing to brag about.
Wow.
I can talk way more eloquently than you.
He gets on his high horse, and then he's just like, "Up, all right." His science experiment blows.
Gonna explode. And they're just laughing, and he's been calling him Chopper this entire time. We get the origin of his name. Tony Chopper, because he's a Tonakai a reindeer.
Yeah, which is
and you've got fine antlers that look like they could chop down trees. So there you go, Tony Chopper.
Oh, just the little smile at the bottom panel.
He's so sweet.
It's so adorable. Which is why.
Yep.
I have to instantly ruin it.
Yep. Back to Wapple, just laughing about what kind of edict he's going to issue today, while his 3 big players are all hanging out at the castle. Apparently Dalton's been acting strangely ever since the World Council. And Dalton's just like, he's like, we'll ever be back the way it was. And the other two are like, who cares?
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. It's like, you got to rule with power. That's what it comes down to.
You have, all right, one of these characters has morals.
Yeah.
And the other two are, so they've always been trash. It's kind of what we're establishing.
It's just the idea that if without the strong leadership, the land would fall into chaos and the people would die like flies. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah.
But then we get a flashback within a flashback, thanks to Dalton.
So before we get into it, this scene, I just want to call out, like, if you've read the manga in the past, like, 150 chapters or so, I don't know. To me, I was like, oh, it's this! That's all I'll say about that.
All we get, because it is just very basic in what it shows.
Yeah.
Like, it shows the bare minimum here, where it's just the Holy Land of Mary-Joie. We don't know anything about it, but we do get a picture of Dragon. Back from chapter, 100 or so? Yeah,
100. I wanted to make sure, so I went back and I was like, did we know, like at chapter 100, could we be able to recognize the face?
Yeah.
And you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and the
face, Dragon.
I think Smoker even called him Dragon, so that's,
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And we get more of an idea of why he's so dangerous. He's not a pirate, it seems. He's a revolutionary. And apparently so much of a revolutionary that, funny enough, in 5 or 6 years, he'll be a formidable enemy of the world government.
That seems oddly specific.
Yeah, it's man, they're really whoever came up with that statistic, they're on the
I
spot.
give it 5 years.
Yeah,
particularly maybe 6.
Good job, dude.
Yeah, wow, called it.
But of course, Wapple doesn't care. It's like, has nothing to do with me. My kingdom would never succumb to some
picking his nose.
Yeah, revolutionary. Just count me out. And then we get the first look at, I think, real look at Vivi's father, Nefeltari Cobra.
Then I love, even back here, he's kind of calling him out. Just like, you should care more.
Yeah,
yeah.
It really comes down to it's like, how could
serious
you
stuff
do this?
If you couldn't hate the guy enough already.
Oh yeah, because he's all upset about the council. It's like a waste of my time, and then you see him slapping this girl.
Yeah, just oops, my hand slipped.
And laughing. And that's when you see him talking about, like, we see Igram there. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Aren't you the Princess of Alabasta? How unfortunate for you to be the daughter of that worthless fool. And Igram's ready to throw down, but he was like, sorry I bumped into you.
Here on the next page, like Dalton doing his sort of like 4D chess analysis, like this could have been a political brouhaha, but she controlled her anger, and it's sort of a cool connection to, like, right at the beginning of the arc when Dalton at Vivi was like, thought I'd seen you before. I thought at the time that it was just because like, she's the princess, so obviously her face is going to be known. But the fact that, like, he was actually there 6 years ago,
it's interesting because I remembered exactly why he remembered.
Oh, yeah, no, this scene was completely gone.
Wow.
Yeah,
Again,
I did not know.
The funny thing is, me being more familiar with the early stuff is what's helping me out here. That I'm have a little bit more knowledge for you. You know the connections for later, but I know the connections right now, which is...
it's good balance.
Yeah, funny stuff. Yeah. I do like that Dalton says sorry as he leaves and just hears...
Yeah, the only one with morals.
Yep, Vivi crying, and it's just like... It's just like, man, a child of 10 puts the welfare of her country above her own feelings. And immediately the other two is like, that's not politics. It's about power.
Man, that might be the most just, like, villainous line.
Yeah. And they just more concerned about drinking. It's like Dalton is the only good person in power in this entire kingdom.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway, back to Hero Luke. And he's just like, life's hard for outcasts like us, but don't blame all humans because the country is sick right now. The people and the government, the hearts, everybody's sick. Everybody says there's no cure for a sick country, but they're wrong because there's a story that in the faraway land in the West, there was a great robber, but he had a serious heart problem. Fortunately for him, he was rich, so he sought out a famous physician for treatment, but none could cure his disease. And the fact that he was going to die just nearly drove him mad, but as he passed a mountain, he saw a magnificent sight, cherry blossoms. And sure enough, that miracle of seeing the cherry blossoms somehow cured him because the next doctor he went to said, you're in perfect health. So he believes that cherry blossoms can cure the country.
It's such an interesting sort of like premise for this character's motivation, and I feel like, at least to me, it was sort of unclear how these two things are connected.
The cherry blossoms
and healing, or if it really was just sort of like a fluke miracle.
Right. I wondered that myself because I couldn't remember the connection exactly. I did remember there was the inspiration, but I couldn't remember the connection, and we do get that later about why this means so much to him, why he believes in it so much, and that's why he has the pirate flag. I'm hoisting the skull and crossbones against every disease there is. And he tells Chopper that it's a symbol of faith and it rejects impossibilities. He's going to fight like a pirate.
There's sort of a cool idea of using like a non-pirate kind of idolizing and using pirate symbolism as like their driving like force. I don't know. I thought it was neat.
Yeah, I like that idea. It also provides the opportunity to fill Chopper's head with a bigger world because he's just saying it's like this island is just such a tiny speck in the grand scheme, and you need to set sail and see the world so you can really see what it's like. And I also love this opportunity to see just like we didn't mention it before, but Hero Luke's hair is just absolutely ridiculous.
This is very sort of. There's this one the panel like at the top of the page where he says the flag rejects impossibilities, and just like sort of seeing his hair in a 3D space it just looks so it's so bizarre.
It's something else, that's for sure. After this big speech, he decides to head out again because he heard that somebody has gotten sick in Roblo, and he has to go save him. But Chopper wants to go with him. As they're there, they hear about 20 doctors sent someone to pick mushrooms because apparently there's a mushroom that grows on this island that may or may not be effective against all sorts of illnesses.
Yeah, which is a sort of a good hint for their goal, I suppose.
Yeah, kind of seems to matter.
kind of eavesdropping a little bit.
Mm-hmm. However, their attempt to heal does not work out. They get chased again and again. Actually, he robs somebody. He's like, the lizard eyeballs didn't work. He robs a guy. He comes across the security force. And then he decides to use Chopper as a decoy.
Yeah. I feel like this is what I was talking about earlier, where I think thematically it's important that Hiruluk and Chopper are both like outcasts.
Yeah.
So Hiruluk kind of being a crappy person is kind of the point to me. Though again, him taking Chopper is something.
Yeah. Absolutely is.
You're my decoy.
Chopper ends up fine though. They just end up fighting and
they're like father and son.
Yeah, and Hiruluk's happy about that. It's like because this was Chopper's first fight. It's like that's because you need a partner to fight, and here's a present, a peace offering, and that's how Chopper got his hat.
Oh, yeah. He's crying.
Aw. And then we just get these wonderful scenes of the two of them working together and just how much of Hiruluk's personality it rubs off on Chopper.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's just such an adorable father-son relationship. Like that one panel of the two of them just smiling and laughing is so adorable.
Yeah. My heart.
Yep. And a whole year passes. And that's what it takes to actually get Chopper completely healed up.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how bad of a doctor he is. Mm-hmm. But he says, congratulations, you're free to go. You can live any way you want.
We'll get into this later. Actually, I'll wait.
Okay. And that's the sad thing is that Chopper finally has this friend, together, and he gets kicked out, and he's just desperately begging. It's like, I don't have any friends. I don't have anywhere to go. Let me in. I'll do whatever it takes. He even injures himself again.
Yeah, he starts bleeding, trying to get back in. And that's when Hiruluk pulls out the gun, tells him to never come back.
Yeah, actually.
While also immediately, trying to hide back the tears.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, immediately makes you wonder, like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
What caused this?
Once we get to that, I think the bit where he's like, after a whole year, your treatment is finally complete. That sounds like BS to me. It sounds like an excuse to get him out. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, because I was initially like, wow, that took a whole year for him to heal. I was like, okay.
Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And that brings us to chapter 143, Clumsy. Again, with Django calculating the outcome of the dance contest. There's not much to say about this one, unless you notice a certain aspect of who the other contestant is.
Oh, is that full body?
It is full body.
I didn't notice.
I noticed I saw the knuckles. I'm like, wait a second. I think that's full body. It's time for another crossover between characters. But yeah, we got Django meeting full body.
Oh, that's so funny.
So we'll see how that goes as time goes on. Yeah, I don't know. But time to get serious because, Hiruluk is dying.
Same.
And all Kureha says is like, yep, you're a goner. And
that's so much. Doesn't even. Yeah, you're dead.
I mean, it says something when we've seen how good she is, and she's like, yeah, you're just dead.
Yeah. Doesn't care.
And it looks like he's only going to have 3 or 4 days. So he's just asking for a chance to prolong his life any bit longer. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, my work is almost finished. I just need a little bit more time. 30 years of research he's put into this, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's when we get this wonderful thing from her. Why don't you go back to that land in the far west? Go see those miraculous cherry blossoms.
That story was about himself.
Yeah. He was a notorious robber and the one cured by cherry blossoms. And that's that makes it hit a lot more, especially because it was 30 years ago. He actually was cured by this.
Yeah.
At least put it off for a long time, or so inspired, or something like that.
Right, yeah, that somehow... Yeah, I guess that's the thing. Like, we never really know why he's dying now. Mm-hmm. God, there's so many questions that I really don't know about what he was suffering from before, if it's the same as what he's going through right now.
And we get this whole thing where he expresses regret. Like, he still has those attitudes and actions of being a robber. That's how he explains why he goes about the way he does to heal people. But it made him a good person. It cleansed his soul, he says.
It's interesting to me then that, like, man, I almost wonder if we could have seen, if he's this bad now, like, what was he like? Well, I guess, he was a notorious robber, so he was, probably, he was an infamous criminal before. So the fact that he is only... he will only sneak into your house and shoot you a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, he's changed.
I guess that is some improvement, but yeah, we find out that he was born in Drum Island, and he wants to make the cherry blossoms bloom here.
That is an important thing, like how Kureha says in the next panel, that like this is a winter island. It's like trying to grow cherry blossoms here is not going to work out for you, dude. Like I think that goes a long way to establish that, like, what Hiruluk is trying to do and what he's been trying to do for the past 30 years is, like, he's trying to do the impossible, basically. But I think that feeling of, like, going after your dreams against the impossible odds is very in tune with the themes of the story. Yeah.
I also love Chopper's terrible sneaking.
Yeah, so that was consistent.
Yeah, he's always been terrible at peeking. Mm-hmm. So, of course, Kureha spots it, but it's like...
She's got eyes in the back of her head.
Yep. He actually... she learns about what Chopper's all about. Hiruluk admits that, I'm the only friend he's ever known, and if I suddenly die before his eyes, it would be a terrible shock. I'd like to spare him.
Yep. And so that's why he kicked him out.
Mm-hmm. I also just noticed... I was, like, wondering what was coming out of the back of her chair that Hiruluk's in, and it's mallets, a mace, and, like, claw hands.
So it's like her operating table.
Yeah. I mean, conk him on the head, knock him out. Yeah, that makes sense. It's still, like, it's not as much of a torture room as we see in the present. But
her methods have evolved over the years. There also seems to be something like hanging off the ceiling. It's kind of covered by the word balloons mostly, but yeah.
Yikes.
It's an interesting detail for a chair that only shows up in this one scene.
Yeah. It just, again, shows her personality.
Yeah,
she's so good that she's gonna die, and he's gonna die in 4 days at 5:30 p.m. Like, she knows the exact time, but there's no without a miracle, there's nothing to get rid of the bacteria that's killing him. But she can fool his body for 3 weeks, and he tries to threaten her at gunpoint, and she just knocks him out.
You can't afford me. Yeah, always such a boss.
Kureha is the best.
She really is.
But she ultimately does decide to treat him. And she's like, yes, you two are alike. You're both clumsy. And then we just get this extended scenario of Chopper running through the woods, getting back to Hiruluk's office, going through a book, going on an excursion, and just this little textless adventure for him.
Yeah. Oh. It says so much without saying anything at all. Like, the second you sort of see Chopper encounter the other reindeers, you're just like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And meanwhile, Hiruluk is using his time to do more of his research and just wants to show those cherry blossoms to Chopper. I love also the wonderful little detail that he comes across a hiking bear that he bows to.
Yes, of course.
Of course. Meanwhile, Hiruluk is just continuing to blow himself up.
You think that would kill him?
Yeah, you'd think, but the way it goes. But hey, Chopper finally fights back against the other reindeer. Gets the crap beat out of him, but he does it.
It's heartbreaking to see him just so much smaller, but like seeing him try to fight back, I feel like that's something he wouldn't have done without Hiruluk's influence, I think.
Yeah, he never would have. He just wanted to be accepted. He never fought back for it.
Yep.
But what he's been looking for all this time is an Amiyudake mushroom, I think it is.
Yeah, there's probably some meaning to that, but I should have looked that up before we started.
Yeah, I don't know. But unfortunately, it's across a wide chasm, and the reindeer are back. These are really upset up reindeer. But a week later, he knocks on the door, missing a horn. Looks like his leg's broken. Yeah. I don't know, but he is messed up. It just hands him the mushroom and says, I want to become a doctor to teach me how to be one. Or can a reindeer be a doctor? Mm-hmm. And it's just such a sweet scene of you hear Luke hugging him. And it's like you got the most important qualification, a big heart. Oh. And just, oh, God. And, that's the proper end of the chapter, but there's also apparently Wapple setting up some sort of trap. I'm stooping so low to catch Hero Luke.
Seems to be like he's trying to catch Hero Luke. Mm-hmm. But that sort of, like, that theme of acceptance, finally, Hero Luke kind of accepting Chopper for, like, who he is and what he wants to be. Mm-hmm. Just all seeing all of the hard work it took to get there.
Yeah.
It's
he gets it. And chapter 144, Snowtail.
No cover story this time.
Nope, no cover story, but we get an Indian influenced, I want to say, look for both Vivi and Nami. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm impressed by the detailing. That had to take a while.
There's a lot of detail in those outfits.
But we get the mushroom back for Hero Luke, and they make it into a soup. And he says it tastes terrible, but good medicine always tastes bad.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm feeling better already. Thank you, Chopper.
Just that little smile from Chopper, just nose plugged and bandaged up and bleeding. Oh.
It's so adorable. And at that point, that time, I've never seen him do that before. It actually had the reaction that he wanted. He's done it. After 30 years, his work is a success, and he can make the cherry blossoms bloom on this island.
Wow.
But after that, he immediately says, I got to go out. You stay in bed because you're in worse shape than me. And he's just like, hey, you'll make a fine doctor.
Chopper being so chuffed with himself. I cured him. It just, and the smile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so sweet. And that's what makes this hurt so much as time goes on.
Yep.
But apparently the trap is the rumors being spread that the 20 doctors are sick. And she's like, it's ridiculous. Ignore it. And it all died down. Obviously, you've not come here to thank me. So you've still got 2 weeks. What do you want? And even before, he's like, I have a favor to ask. I refuse. But you don't even know what it
is. Forget it. Yeah. Well, and then she's probably right. Where she's like, you want everything for free. Like, yeah.
But she hands him a small bag and said, that is the result of 30 years of research. My work finally borne fruit, the miracle cure. But there's not enough of it, and I don't have much time. I want you to make the cherry blossoms in my place. And even as she's saying, why should I do that? He's like, one more thing. Teach Chopper medicine. He wants to be a doctor.
Yeah, well, I think that is sort of the reasonable response here from Kureha, who's just like, who do you think you are?
Yeah, why are you asking me favors? He's like, he's a reindeer monster, but he's got a kind heart. He'll make a good doctor, so please train him.
Yeah, this is sort of what I was talking about before, where right before the flashback, Kureha mentioning that like the castle was in honor of him, but their relationship throughout this entire flashback is so like tenuous.
Yeah, even now it's like they're helping each other, but it's not.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call them exactly friends yet.
Yeah, frenemies maybe.
Yeah, because even though she throws him out, he knows he can count on her.
Yep.
I like this line. Doctors are mostly good people.
Everybody except for you.
Except for these 20 doctors, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we see the effects of this. That in order to sell this, the 20 doctors are not healing anybody. So there's sick people, there's injured people. People are begging to go see them. They've waited over a week and nothing.
It's bad. Oh! Completely off topic, but just seeing the chair again from the other angle made me laugh.
Oh yeah, it's so good. And that's when, as she's looking at the bag, it's like, you don't give up, and she realizes something. In the meantime, though, Dr. Hero Luke uses bombs to get past the people and takes a hostage in order to go up
He's
the
got a bomb.
Kureha makes it back to the Hero Luke's place. And he's like, hey, don't run. I knew what you are. Where is he? He's like, he's better now. You think he went to town? He's like, better? He's not better. It's like, no, he drank this and he got better. She immediately recognizes what it is.
And he's like,
and he's almost at the castle going up that ropeway. Yeah. And then we return to Kureha just bashing Chopper over and started to cry. And to see Kureha cry, that is huge.
So it's like they care for each other. They do.
Yeah, they do.
They're both really bad at showing it, but her concern does come through, maybe a little too strongly, for beating the mess out of Chopper. Mm-hmm. The reveal that the mushroom was poisonous.
Yeah, and this is the moment that got me, just totally just tore me apart. Mm-hmm. And I remembered this. I remembered how it happened. This inadvertent poisoning.
Yep.
What I forgot was why he fed it to him, why he was mistaken on that whole idea. Because this picture was next to the mushroom and it was a skull and crossbones. And Chopper, who'd only ever been taught that the flag rejects impossibilities.
Yep.
It's against every disease. So of course it'll help him. And,
yeah.
And he's crying. It's like, the doctor said he felt better, so you're a liar. She's just like, think about him saying has a kind heart. And he's like, what you did touch him deeply. And it's poison. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as a miracle cure. That's why doctors are needed. And a kind heart alone is not enough to save lives. You have to get knowledge and medical skills. You can't save anyone otherwise. And she puts her glasses down to leave him crying as she just tries to hide her own tears. And those wails, like oh my God.
Chopper, Chopper not only basically killing the only person who ever loved him, but he was already dying anyway. The Chopper just sort of, by trying to help made it worse. Is just so tragic and it hurts.
Here's the truly crazy thing about all this. Mm-hmm. To make Chopper feel better.
Yep.
To confirm that friendship after all what Chopper went through. Hero Luke did not know that he had gotten the mirror. He accomplished his dream when he took when he took the poison.
Oh, you're right. Because that happened first.
Yes, and as we learn, it kills very quickly within an hour. I think it is.
Yeah. Kureha had just said that.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. He took it knowing that he might not accomplish his dream just to make Chopper, to reward Chopper, essentially.
Yep. It's that sort of, man, Hero Luke is such an interesting character to me, having remembered almost nothing prior to this. But this, just that sort of, the way in which he eventually does, express love for Chopper, I think the reason it hits for me is because you see him sort of, kind of go through this arc of accepting him and then not knowing how to turn him away other than through violence, but then to come around and accept him by dying by putting Chopper's acknowledging him as doing a good thing over your own life. That hurts. And I feel like that is something that would not have happened if I think it hits harder knowing that, again, like the point I've been trying to drive home, because he's been established as such a criminal that he sort of learned to care about somebody other than himself and his work. And I think that's why it works for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And he decides to go out on his own terms. He knows it's a trap.
Yeah.
But he knows he's dying, and this is his best chance to try to do one other last good thing to try to save the 20 doctors in case it wasn't a trap.
Yeah, the reveal that so people were dying here on the island all for his stupid trap.
Mm-hmm. And because they reveal that to the people as soon as Hero Luke goes up. It's just
as if Walpole wasn't awful enough.
I just not laugh when he saw the tears in his eyes of he took the bait. It's just awful. But chapter 145, carrying on his will, and apparently this dance contest is really, really good because even the Marines are dancing to the Totally White Fever dance contest.
Yeah,
the seagulls are dancing, the Marines are dancing, everybody's dancing. It's just so good.
Everybody's having a good time.
Yep. It's a fun panel. But that's when we finally see that, yes, it was indeed a trap here, Luke. And Wapol, of course, is gloating. Everybody's prepared to execute him. And Dalton's like, why? Why did you come?
Yeah.
And instead, Hero Luke breaks down in happy tears. It just shows how much he's softened in that year of hanging out with Chopper. And he's like, I really did think it was a national emergency, but it was only a trap.
This whole elaborate trap is for a guy who's going to die in an hour.
Right. And he's like, nope, you can't kill me, because a man does not die when he's shot in the heart with a pistol. He doesn't die when he's stricken with a deadly disease or he eats a soup from a deadly mushroom. It's when he's forgotten.
This speech is not necessarily for any sort of like, oh, this is foreshadowing, but I think the sort of idea that Hiruluk is presenting here is really important to just like, I think the worldview of a lot of characters, if that makes sense, and just sort of like the driving force behind the kind of story that One Piece is, and just the idea that you are not truly dead until you are forgotten. I think about like this chapter title being called like inheriting his will or carrying on his will. I thought about like the chapter 100 opens up with like Dragon coming to Logtown, and there's like he's like recalling the speech from Gold Roger, where it was sort of a similar sort of thing of like basically you don't truly die if your will goes on.
Yeah,
I should have wrote down the actual words, but
yeah, it's all right.
I made that connection in my head, and it's something that you see over and over again, I think, as the story goes on.
How far people are willing to go for their ideals.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
so, he says, I may disappear, but my dream will live on.
And just to have that intercut with Chopper rushing to his side.
Yeah.
And it does affect Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
And even
he
asks,
crying.
like, what will become of this country? He's like, someone will continue my work. And again, Wapol laughs at him for this. And he's like, hey, a monster will appear. He's my son. Don't hurt him. And he just has this big old laugh, happy about his life.
That is an incredible panel.
Yeah, it's really good, especially in the intercut between Kureha taking a swig and him taking a swig. And he blows himself up.
Yeah.
He blows himself up rather than die to Chopper's poison.
Wow, what a way to go.
Yeah. And that, of course, Chopper arrives just in time to see it, and he goes into rage mode. But thankfully, Dalton's there.
Yes.
And he's like, no, get out of here. If you can't beat me, you won't stand a chance. Go. Live for the sake of this country. Because I think that live for the sake of this country matters, because I think it shows how much Dalton believed in Hero Luke and those words.
Yep. Yeah. And man, it's... I guess I can just get into it now. It was something, when I read this batch of chapters, I felt like I was a little underwhelmed, specifically by the point of like this country is sick, and it's falling to like corruption, and you see that with Wapol and his goons, but you don't really see it like in any other perspective. And so into the moment, I was kind of like, I don't know if I was really sold by it. But like seeing that through Dalton's eyes, I think is really important. Like for him to sort of start to see the cracks, and then for him to see Hero Luke sacrifice himself, and that is sort of the point that changes him.
I think you can look at it through the people's eyes, that they're willing to put up with Wapol's 20 doctors system just to live, and just how downtrodden everybody is from that, and this makes Dalton take a stand. And he's like, this, if we treat the people like animals, this country can't be saved no matter how advanced our medical science is. Medicine can't cure stupidity, which, boy, is that the truth.
That is a great line. That is a great line.
And we actually get a truly threatening Wapol at this point. You know what happens when I get really angry, don't you, Dalton? And that's the first time I've ever felt real threat.
That is the only time.
Yeah. But to end things off, we do have Chopper asking to be trained to be a doctor as he waves the flag back and forth. And he says, I will make myself the miracle cure. I will become the doctor who can cure everything. Because there's no disease that's incurable. And all Kureha says is, call me doctor. Which in the anime, they have her say it's Doctorine. I don't know why they...
Huh.
I'm not sure why that is. That is, but yeah.
Yeah.
Since it doesn't fully come up here... I think this is the best time to mention it. What's Kureha wearing right now in the present? That you might, it's not, we don't see it in any panels here, but it's worth mentioning because it ties into this. A cherry blossom t-shirt.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. The way these two show their friendship for each other, they're. I think that I think comes through in a way that is really satisfying, just because you see them kind of just at each other's throats for so long, but like they kind of show each other that they care in these really kind of backhanded ways, or these really subtle ways.
They don't come out and say it, but they trust each other enough. It's an interesting friendship.
Yeah, it really. I think even now, I think it stands as just like one of the more interesting like character relationships.
Yeah, but Dalton, of course, did not work out so well against Wapol.
Yeah, he's rip.
And this might be important. I won't die. I refuse to die until peace is restored to this kingdom. And Wapol is just laughing as he goes down the mountain. His word is law. And we finally leave the flashback.
What a great transition back.
Yep. Where Luffy's winding up. Wapol's freaking out. And we get the let.
that 5 chapters of build up
all to this one punch, which after all that
spread, after all of that,
yes, that is what we want.
Oda knows how to sell a satisfying punch.
Yeah, he does.
He really does. Oh man. Yeah, that, and again, we really lucked out having this episode of the podcast sort of book ended by Luffy coming in for the punch, and then finally here at the end, an hour later, just
yeah, it is so satisfying.
Feels good.
I'm elated by it. It's a good flashback. I love that it's given the proper time. I'd say this is maybe the second most tragic backstory.
Yes,
up to this point.
I would put it above everybody else's but Nami.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Is sort of, and I guess that might be sort of a weird classification, because I just flashed back to us tearing up while we were reading Sanji and Zeph. But I think it's a good flashback in hindsight. I just, this one I think hit all the right notes for me, as sort of just that like tragic mentorship.
Yeah, there was tragedy for Sanji, realizing how far Zeph went for him, but it's saved until the very end. And this is interspersed, and you get to see more of a character arc. Like
it really
Zeph, because Zeph was still alive, his character arc didn't end until the end of the Baratier arc.
That's a good point. Yeah, this one definitely feels a lot like the archetypal One Piece flashback. It feels like this is the sort of where that calling it a formula feels a little skeezy, but the formula really starts to come into their own here. I feel like we were seeing it kind of build up with Sanji's backstory, and Nami's backstory is still one of the best in the entire manga, but I definitely think sort of the framing device used here of sort of like introducing a character and having them go through an arc, and having that character be sort of like, this is how their actions affected, one of the main characters. I think that this one with Chopper and Hero Look is sort of a good baseline for it.
Yep.
Moving forward.
Absolutely agreed.
Yeah. And I felt fairly neutral about this arc in general, but this flashback especially. I didn't really... I remember that it made me a bit sad, but I wasn't, when I read this the first time, I wasn't like, oh, wow. But it's good. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. When you take the time
I liked it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how things kind of hit more when you take your time with it rather than just like blow through the 17 pages.
I definitely remember blowing through this arc. Like I was, and not because I was like bored or anything, but I was just eating it up, and I wasn't really processing it. It was just,
and that can easily happen.
So good that yeah. Wow. Yep. So it's almost like this format for a podcast was a good idea.
Yeah. Who would have guessed?
Wow.
Who would have guessed? And hey, next time we're getting into a fight. So.
Oh baby. Yeah. We are coming up at the end here. We've got like probably 2 or 3 more episodes for this arc.
I believe there's only 9 chapters left, so 2 episodes.
All right. Wow, this one went by really fast.
Yeah, it really did. So yeah, good stuff. But with that, I believe we've said all we've wanted to say about chapters 141 to 145 of One Piece. Thank you so much for listening, and you can find more of my ramblings and stream VODs over at BitNerd Games on YouTube or BitNerd with an underscore at the end on Twitter. And Brandon, where can they find you at?
I'm on Twitter at Brandon Bovia, talking about anime and manga and games at my job. Yeah, just kind of one of those periods of work where I'm kind of grinding behind the scenes, but with not a lot to show for it. So not a whole lot to talk about recently. So I think by the time this episode is out, Volume 3 of Kaiju number 8 will be out in print. Go buy that because it's awesome, and it's got a character on the cover who's got a big old axe, and it's just great.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to help us out more, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/Derek Bittner. That's DERRICKBITNER to listen to the next episode 3 days early. And make sure to return next time as we discuss chapters 146 to 150 of One Piece. Until then, my friends, bye.
Remember to take life one piece at a time.
When do you think a person dies? When a bullet from a pistol pierces his heart? No. When he's attacked by an incurable disease? No. When he eats a soup of deadly poisonous mushrooms? No! A man dies when people forget him. Even if I should disappear right now, my dream will come true. And when it does, the citizen's sickness of the heart will be cured as well.